Hey, it's Joyce Conroy. You are on the Block Party and Ernie's Corner. And Ernie, over the years, I know we've talked about it, whether it was solo work or with Pacific Eye and Ear, and you've done so many great projects. And I know you're not going to quit yet, but
No.
even sometimes things end up on the cutting room floor as good as they are. And we're going to talk today about Leon Russell.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Joyce. Yeah. I mean, most people would get the impression that everything I do gets sold, and that's not really the case at all. Just like everybody else, nobody bats 1,000, and I've been looking back at some of the stuff that was on the cutting room floor and never got published and thought, well, there's at least six that I have documentation on that I think would really be interesting for people. And it's great because it gets the exposure that it didn't get being done. And the block party has been so generous with turning me on to the ability to do this, and then being part of the block itself and all our wonderful neighbors. And this is these six. I've got six I want to share with everybody, and we'll do it every 2 months. So it'll be like a series. Every 2 months we'll pick one. This month, like you said, it's going to be Leon Russell. In 1971, when I was at Craig Braun in New York, and I knew that I was coming to California, uh, I put together some comps. We talked about that. There was a Cheech and Chong Big Bamboo comp. There was an Alice Cooper Schools Out comp. There was a Carpenters comp. There was a Bread comp. There was a Leon Russell comp. And the Alice Cooper and Cheech and Chong, those actually went. They got they got produced and they got recognition. The other ones kind of fell by the wayside and just got put away with a bunch of other stuff that since has been stored. And thinking about this stuff and thinking about the fact that you know I don't want anybody to get the impression that everything I do is awesome and get sold. Well, we talked about this before. Musicians, artists, actors get the most rejection. They have to deal with it all the time. And even when you become a success at it, you still get rejection, you get pushback, you get people that just have nothing good to say about anything that you've done. So I think this is kind of a neat way to sort of introduce some of the ideas that we had that didn't really have the wherewithal to get finished, but actually were in the running in my mind. And Leon Russell, I was a huge Leon Russell fan. I've been a Leon Russell fan since the Grand Ole Opry. A lot of people don't know that. He used to play piano on the Grand Ole Opry back in the 50s. And he was just a kid dressed in a tuxedo with a candelabra on the piano, and he's playing in the Grand Ole Opry. And so I'd always been a big fan of his, and I put together a comp. You see this, I I always read bubbling under section in Billboard magazine every week. I was it was faithful reader every week. I looked to see what was going on because that was kind of like telling me, who's doing what and where it's going and what it's called, and maybe they need something. And so it was a great reservoir of, leads for us to secure work at Pacific Pioneer. So in 1971, I prepared this comp along with these other ones we talked about, and I came out to California in hopes that I could get in touch with Leon Russell. In the bubbling under part of Billboard magazine, it said that he was going to be working on a new album, and he was like considered, the master of space and time. That's what he had, this kind of nickname. So there wasn't a name for the album. There wasn't a whole lot of information other than he's thinking about working on this new album, or he was working on it. And so I put together this comp. Leon Russell, you see there. Now you got to remember what I'm going to be showing you is over 50 years old. So these things were done 50 years ago, 50 years plus, 53 years actually to be exact. So they're not in perfect condition, but they were 53 years ago. But who can say that they're as good 53 years ago as they are today? I mean, it just happens with time. So what you see here is logo that I kind of put together, Master of Space and Time, and the Leon Russell lettering, and just this kind of outer space kind of pattern around the lettering. And then this was the front cover. It was just a really great shot of him, and on the logo would be a sticker that went on the shrink wrap of the album, so that when you took you took the shrink wrap off, the sticker would come off with it, and it's just this really great shot of Leon Russell. And so that was the front cover, and then we're going to go to the inside, and I'm going to show you. Oh, what I wanted to say originally was, let me see, let me go back to this one. Um, you'll recognize this artwork that we talked about for Good
Good
Thunder.
Thunder.
Yes, exactly. And this is my schoolmate and good friend Rick Rodriguez's painting. I mean, it was just a beautiful painting. And I had used this because it really kind of reflected psychedelic rock, obviously for Good Thunder, because that was their genre, but more Leon Russell, the master of space and time. I mean, this illustration could fall under that category because of the spaciness of it, the uniqueness of it, the unusualness of it, the impact of it. And what you're seeing here is the inside spread and of the album. You see the front cover. We showed that, and when you go to the inside, there was actually. Let me go to this shot. This is the shot of the inside. So it was a gatefold album, but I used that. It was I used an extra panel here that you see, and it's cut. It's got an image printed on it. It's got the same image of Rick's painting in the back. So but slots are cut every inch or so. There's a slot cut in it so that the picture is violated with these slots holes in it. But when you flip it around and tap it in, there's what you don't see here is on the ends there's two tabs that this panel here, you see the tab here, there's a slot over here that these two tabs hook into, and it makes a curve. Okay, it curves like this. And so
That is creative.
what happens is it looks 3D.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of loses the effect here in these photographs, and they're not the best photographs, but I tried to catalog them as best I could. So when you flip it and curve it, and you can kind of get the feeling of the curve on this shot. Well, let's see, is it that one? No, yeah, well, you see the curve here. And then on this side over here, there's a picture of Leon and all the lyrics and credits and stuff over here. And again, it loses the impact because it's a dark shot, but it's actually it's really beautiful when you open it up and there's that shot of Leon and the credits and stuff over here. And then you see this you bend the panel and stick it into the slots, and you get this 3D looking image of Rick's painting. I mean, it really is impactful. And so I put this comp together in hopes that I could get together with Leon Russell. We weren't able to connect with him, but Good Thunder came along at the end of 1971 when Tony and I left Craig Braun. We started Pacific Pioneer and went out looking for work under that banner. The first group that came along was Good Thunder, and I was already working with Shep Gordon on Alice's Schools Out package because the comp had been lost, and Tom Wilkes or Craig couldn't figure out how I made it stand up like a school desk with the legs folding out from underneath. So I was already working with Shep. We were staying pretty busy. We're now also working with Captain Beyond, who was on Capricorn Records, and we talked about that package as well. They were a reformation of Iron Butterfly with Lee Dorman and Rhino and Bobby Caldwell and
Rod Evans.
Rod, yeah, the lead singer, just great group and really great to work with. And so it got this 3D effect. But when I showed it to the management, the girl that was managing Good Thunder, obviously there was no budget to do this kind of a package for them. Their package was more of a front and back, and that was it because it was a brand new group. They broke up after the album came
Yeah,
out.
just one
And so,
album, but it was good stuff.
yeah, it was great. I mean, it would have really been great to do it like this, but the Leon Russell thing wasn't going to be happening. They came to us. They didn't have a big budget. They're a brand new group. They needed something impactful. And when I showed them this comp, they really loved it. But they compromised for the front and just the front of the album cover with Rick's piece on it. The thing that's nice about this one is it shows the entire piece. And it's really, I mean, when you look at it, when it's bent like that and folded into a curve, it really, really is impactful. And what we have here is kind of a flat version. You see, this is the left panel. There's Leon there with all the lyrics or credits and stuff. And then there's the painting. Unfortunately, it's in black and white. I didn't have a color version of these couple next ones that I'm going to show you, but you get the idea of when it's flat, it's really, you see the whole thing and it's really cool. And when you curve it, it just comes to life. It's like looking at a 3D image without the glasses on. Once you put the glasses on, once you curve this construction that I designed, it became three-dimensional, and it was really kind of neat. And when you moved from left to right, it still worked because the images were the same image, but just offset a little bit. Just like 3D, I mean, they don't put all three colors in the same exact area. They offset them a little bit to help that 3D effect. So as a big fan of 3D and the creature from the Black Lagoon and stuff sitting as a kid in theaters with those goggles on or those glasses on, this was a perfect kind of construction for that illustration. I mean, I think it really, really worked well. And then when you see the panel when they're flat, this is what the other side of the panel this panel over here that's got the same image as here on the other side of it, this is what the back side of it looked like. So, and you see the tabs over there on the left, and then there's, like I said, there's slots over here on the right. That those tabs, once it's bent in a curve, it really comes alive. So there's that piece, and then we talked about this piece, and then there were several back cover approaches and several different front cover logos and stuff that I did. This was another version. And again, I'll send you this image so that you can see it better. But there's some different lettering up here than the logo I did because this was the back cover for all the different approaches for the front and back cover. But this is the only one I have is in black and white of this version. And I didn't have I didn't have a color version of the color one that we did like this one. But I tried to put together what I had best. And again, then this back cover I thought was really, and in color, again, in color, it's really dynamic because you see the hand, the logo.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it really, and again,
Fellini-esque.
huh?
Fellini-esque. It was
Yeah,
almost like what you did. Was it buckwheat? That was the Fellini effect.
yeah,
That's what
right.
I'm seeing here, Ernie. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and that's a section of the painting actually. Here, let's see, I get this flat version here. So that you'll see his hands, the hand that's throwing those images right in here. So it
Oh,
sort of focused in on it and made a really nice back cover. I wish I had it in color so you could see it. It's a beautiful piece. And this back cover worked really, really well. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to show it to Leon Russell, but it's the spin on it. The cool thing about it was Good Thunder was on Elektra Records. We talked about that, Jack Holzman and Elektra Records. Shelter Records was distributed by Elektra, and Leon Russell was doing a concert in Hawaii, in the main island, and Good Thunder opened for him at that concert. So the group had myself, my partner Tony, and my wife Bonnie. They paid for us to go to Hawaii for the weekend and hang out with them and go to the concert. We had great front row seats in the concert. And then the other thing was we were able to go backstage after the concert and hang out with the group and meet Leon Russell, which for me was, I mean, again, being a fan since he was on the Grand Ole Opry. I mean, the first thing I said to him is, I'm going to tell you something you never heard before. I'm your biggest fan. And he laughed, and we talked about Good Thunder. He really liked the group. He liked the album cover that we did for him. He liked that image. And I told him that there was a point before we did the Good Thunder album with this graphic that I had put together a comp to show him of a different version of this with 3D and stuff. And he really liked the idea. And he turned me on to the guy that was the I guess he was running the label. Shelter Record was in LA, and Leon Russell was back, in the South. And so this guy was running his label, and he was also kind of like he was running the label, and he was also kind of like a creative director there. He handled everything. It was a small label. There were two or three people that worked at it. One was the receptionist. There was this guy, and I think another person. They didn't really have an art department. So when Leon said, "Hey, reach out to this guy, and I'll let him know that you're going to be reaching out to," that we had met at the concert after the weekend was over, and we went back to L.A. I reached out to the guy, and he was really kind of he was he was open about meeting with us, and he didn't really. Well, quite honestly, what happened was we met with him and he was really excited about giving us all their work. We could have been the agency for Shelter Records, okay? The only problem was that we would have to give him a kickback. Now, there's a lot of that going on in corporate America too, especially when you're handling production, which was one of the things that we did at Pacific Pioneer. We handled the printing of things, not only album covers, but literature, brochures, packaging, all that kind of stuff. So we handled that, and there's money to be made in that part of it. And this guy he didn't really come right out and say, well, if you give me a kickback, I'll give you all the work. But in so many words, he said it. I mean, we got, the idea that, yeah, we could have this client, we could do all this work, but why would we have to pay somebody to use us? It just didn't resonate. It didn't resonate with my partner. It didn't resonate with me. And it wasn't even about the amount of work or the amount of money that we could have made. It just didn't seem like it was the right thing to do. Um, and so we declined. We declined to do it. We didn't get any of the work. The label signed a few more acts, and then they went away into obscurity. And you know, for me, I would have loved to do it. I would have loved to had an opportunity to do a Leon Russell album, and that would have been a sure way to link myself in. He already liked the thing that we had done for Good Thunder. He knew who we were. It was his suggestion that I reach out to this gentleman and talk with him about it. And so when Tony and I went over there and we had that meeting with him, and we came out of that meeting and we just looked at each other and said, this doesn't make any sense. Had we been with the company we were with before, it would have made all the sense in the world.
Hmm.
Okay, because that's how some people do stuff. It just wasn't, it was one of the things that rubbed us the wrong way. And I know my partner, Tony, who I didn't like when I first started working at Craig Braun, and he had already been at Craig for a few years and was his vice president and head of sales. Um, we didn't like each other, but when we came out to California and we were put together in the same apartment for me for a period of 3 months, and then I was going back to California, we really sort of found a common ground where we were both needing to find work. That was our job, and work that was promised wasn't delivered. So it was all just this big farce of what we were supposed to do on what was promised, and it never came to fruition. So we had to do it on our own. And so that really would have been the wrong way. I mean, Tony, that rubbed him the wrong way as well when we were at the other company. And just, it was just, there's always that piece of the business, but it didn't make sense to pay somebody to use you. Why would you do that? But there's a lot of that goes on. And not that we're saints, but it just was the wrong thing to do. And we both agreed on it. So, you know, getting back to, the opportunity of being able to work with Leon Russell would have been a really great opportunity for me. And that would have definitely put us in the spot to do it. But I still enjoy the fact to know that I had met him. He was an incredible artist. And the album that was going to be the Master of Space and Time turned out to be an album for Leon Russell called Carney.
Fabulous LP.
Every cut on that album is amazing, and it came out not long after we were in Hawaii with the group, and I get asked a lot, what album covers do you like that you didn't do? What are your top favorites of? Obviously, there are albums that you enjoy and really like the graphics of, not so much about the music, but the album cover, the design, the concept. And I'll tell you right away, I'm gonna talk about one each time we talk about the cutting room floor pieces, because there are those for each one of the albums that we're going to be talking about over the next year. But Carney for me was an incredible album, not only because of the music and the fact that I was a huge Leon Russell, but I'm a lettering guy. And that Carney lettering was probably the most incredible lettering I've ever seen. I wish that I could do something that good. Seriously, I mean, it's beautiful lettering, and it really works on that tambourine, and with him with the painted face. I mean, it
Yes.
it was just a great cover and a great logo that unfortunately they didn't use after that album. I mean, I guess it really didn't fit because it was really like a carnival with the tambourine and that lettering and stuff. But I thought it was just a beautiful lettering. And again, I'm envious of that. As a lettering guy, it just really, and it really motivated me to get better, because there are a lot of great artists out there, a lot better than I am. But I just, I try to uh, absorb things and then grow from them, instead of looking at them in a way that is envious and putting it down and stuff. I don't have any problem with giving people credit. And for me, this Carney album is right there at the top of that next five after this one that we'll be talking about for different reasons. And I just, it was this I wish this album would have been able to hit the record stores, because I really think that it would have got a lot of recognition with the three-dimensional piece of it and everything. I mean, I think it really would have really had people talking about it. And the Carney album was a beautiful album, and again, every cut on that album was amazing. And since we didn't do that album, I would like to do a mind meld with you
Okay.
on
Okay. Let's see where we're at
on
with
on
this.
the songs. For me, the best song on this album, there are two: Tightrope and Me and Baby Jane. Those two cuts were, I mean, I must have wore two of these albums out playing them. I mean, they were on all the time, because this was a breakthrough album for him.
Yes.
And it really, I think it hit the number two on the charts and stuff. I mean, and that was like the biggest thing that he had really ever done to date, with that to that date. And again, envious because it was such a good album and would have got great exposure. Envious because this design that I created really would have had a lot of talk about it. But sometimes that happens. It happened to me with the Doors album, the Full Circle album. I think if Jim Morrison, I'm convinced if Jim Morrison had still been alive and been on that album would have not only been a lot more successful because it was now the Doors, but that Zoetrope that I did for it was probably the most incredible construction that I ever did in the record business, with that Zoetrope and putting it together. And again, this is another smaller uh, piece of having somebody, a fan, getting involved, making it more, personally involved in doing something with it. On the Doors album, you're putting together a Zoetrope. On this, you're taking a flat surface and making it look 3D. And you kind of get that feeling of it, what it looks like when it's flat, and then when it's open, it's like a whole different experience.
Even the black and white really comes across.
Yeah,
Even the
yeah. I
black and
mean,
white is great.
yeah. I wish I would have had the color on these. And I guess, there was one of the things that we tried to do at Pacific Ioneer was because people started keeping our sketches, they started keeping our comps and stuff. And in fact, when I was doing all the work at Nestle, every time we do a project with a piece of illustration, the brand manager we would give it to the brand manager, to get them to love us, to give us more work, and they would give it back to me and say, "Have Bill or have Drew or you sign this for me." So we gave away a lot of pieces that were signed, but we got a lot. I worked with Nestle for 30 years. I was their smallest vendor on their authorized vendor list of, I think there were about 17 agencies that they could work for. And we were the smallest, and we took away a lot of work. There was no Christmas cards coming from the big agencies that we took work away from at Nestle. And, but things balance out. I mean, we became the agency for Little David. We did 13 albums for Alice, I mean, and all this other work came along. But again, I really feel that if Morrison were alive, that the Doors album would have been incredible if this would have hit the record stores. And after meeting Leon and hearing his response of the Good Thunder cover, I know that if he would have seen this, he would have flipped out. He would have just loved it. I mean, it was just perfect for him. And again, uh, for reasons beyond our control, things happen in our lives that we can wish that would have happened, but even the worst thing that's ever happened has turned out to be good. There's always a good piece of it, that you can relate back to, well, this didn't happen, but all those other things did. So, in the scheme of things, thank God for you, Joyce. Thank God for the block party. Thank God for our neighbors on the block and wanting to hear these kind of things. I'm getting a great response, as I know you are too, from our neighbors and new people joining. And it's a great neighborhood with a lot of really great people. And I've said this before, I feel like I'm coming home every week when we do these. I look forward to it, and hopefully they'll stay interesting enough where people will keep responding. I mean, I'm getting an overwhelming response of the posts that I put just on Facebook, and the social media part of it is big as well, thanks to Jack and you, and I'm sure you're experiencing it too. So it's a great combination we have. It's a great you know relationship that you and I have. You add a lot to what we do.
We're glad to have you as part of the family. And I'm so glad you had a chance to meet Leon and he was
Yeah.
aware of this. And another favorite song of mine, and we were very close, Tightrope. That was a great song on early FM. This Masquerade.
Oh yeah,
When it
sure.
goes to the Carney LP, because he's kind of like in a like he's got the painted face
Yeah.
masquerade, and I know Karen Carpenter and the Carpenters, they recorded it. Leon was just an incredible songwriter, a true Renaissance man, very underappreciated when it came to rock and roll in so many genres. And Ernie, this is wonderful because I'm just very glad that I'm able to do this and that you're so kind to come forth and share these designs because a lot of people are finding out about Leon because you figured this
Yeah.
was back in the 70s.
Yeah.
As time goes on, you get people that start to discover, and even younger people. I'm really finding that. And
Sure.
there's a biography out about Leon. I think it's Bill Janowitz
Yeah.
wrote a biography. So, the interest that keeps coming forward, people will look at this design and say, hey, that's another thing I'm learning about
Yeah.
Leon,
Well, and
even
the
though it didn't come.
beautiful
Yeah.
thing about you and the block party is, no, if I wasn't doing this and we weren't doing this together, this album this concept would have never seen daylight at all. It sat in a box with a bunch of other ones up in a storage space in my office out there. And thank goodness that you have the wherewithal and the desire to see these things, because like I said, it would have never seen the light of day, and neither will the other five that we're going to be talking about. It's really something, Joyce, and I'm so glad to just be part of it and have my little corner here on the block.